So again, prayer is not something that you memorize, something like a poetry, and you have a prayer for sleep and you have a prayer for food, and it becomes routine. Prayer is a conversation. When you pray, your main goal should not be to do your duty or to solve a crisis, though we do need to present our needs before the Lord. But the main goal should be to know God. Because the problems that we have, though they are real, they are not the most important problem. The most important problem, the most important need, the most vital need, the biggest problem we have is that we don't know God. Prayer should be with the purpose first to know God. The more you know God, the more you understand Him, the more you trust Him, the more you love Him, the more peace you have. When you have a big problem, that says that you have a small God. Not that if you have God, you don't have problems. You do have problems, but you know God, you know that He's in control, you know that He has power, that He loves you, and you put it in His hands and you trust Him though you don't understand. Not based on what you understand, but based on relationship, based on the fact that you know Him. So saying that, there are some steps. When you pray, the more you pray, the more you know God. The more you know God, the more you know yourself. Because it depends what you compare yourself with. If you compare yourself with somebody who is from prison, somebody who committed a crime, you feel you are better. If you compare yourself with Mother Teresa or somebody else, you feel you are worse. But when you compare yourself with God, then you know that you are a sinner. You know that there is nothing you can do in your power. And you know that you need transformation. And so the more you know God and His love and His holiness, comparing yourself with God, the more you understand your situation and your desperate need for change. When you look to God and see His love, His perfection, His divine holiness, you understand that you are nothing. Like Paul. Paul says, I am the greatest among sinners, the biggest sinner. Well, I don't believe Paul was the biggest sinner. He was an apostle. He was one of the best in the New Testament. But he didn't compare himself with others. And so when you compare yourself with God, you instantly know that you need transformation, you need repentance, you need change, you need growth, you need victory. And if you try that, you will never manage. Basically, the more you try, the worse you get. Have you ever tried to change yourself, to get victory over some sins? For instance, anger. I was not born very patient. I have a high metabolism, a high energy. I can accomplish a lot, but I have a short fuse. Basically, I get angry right away. And I try to be patient, and I will lose my patience and try to be patient and hold it in. And eventually I would explode, and it was a mess. And then I asked my father, how do you get patience? And my father said, have you tried? Yes. Have you prayed about it? Yes. And what happened? He wanted me to realize. He knew the answer to my question. He just wanted me to realize it. What happened? I said, very strange. The more I pray that I get patience, the more it seems that I get angry. And he said, yes, that's what happens. For two reasons. Number one, Satan is going to attack you even more. And number two, you cannot change yourself. You may change a little your external behavior, but you cannot change your heart, your nature. It takes God's power to change you. Only He can give you a new heart. You need to be born again. You need to be a new being. So I said, then how do you do that? And my father said to me, you cannot change your heart, but you can invite God's presence. That's your duty. The more you know Him and the more you invite Him in, when He comes in, the more He takes from your heart, the less power, the less access Satan has. So you don't fight sin by fighting sin. You fight sin by inviting God. And He fights sin for you. He gives you victory. You cannot fight Satan, but God already defeated Satan. He gives you victory. So your part is to invite God in. So how do I get victory over sin or over anger, for instance? Well, I'm going to give you an example. When I was young, 7th, 8th grade, somewhere there, I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do drugs or alcohol or smoking or stealing or killing. I didn't go with girls. But I had some friends that were not good people. They would meet together. They would tell terrible jokes, bad, dirty jokes. And not only, but they would drink together, they would smoke together, and then they would approach girls that were coming from work and going home. And we would meet together in a place close to a little park and some stores. And as girls would go in the night from work home, they would whistle. Hello, hey beauty, stop for a second, let's talk. And I would say, leave them alone. Hey, keep your mouth shut if you want to be part of our group. And they would whistle after the girls, and once in a while they would push a girl, and they would call them with bad names, and I didn't feel comfortable. But in order to be accepted by the group, when they would tell a dirty joke, I would laugh, and then I would tell a joke, and then I would keep quiet. And one night, they actually tried to grab a girl, and I said, leave her alone, leave her alone. And I started to defend her. Hey, it's something to say a word, but something else to touch her. Leave her alone. Hey, leave us alone. If you don't like it, go home. And they left her alone. The girl started to walk. And they turned from the girl, they turned towards me. And they started to mock me and call me names and laugh that I am stupid, that I am weak, and I am not like them. They make fun of girls, they approach girls, I am not like them. And they said, you don't belong here. And I got so hurt that I left. After I left home, they went after that girl and they attacked her. Next morning, I learned that they were all in prison. They were all arrested. If I would have been there, I would have been arrested. Though I didn't touch the girl, but I would have been part of that group. The next night, I had a difficult night. I felt guilty. Though I didn't touch the girl, though I was trying to defend her. When she said, leave me alone, I said, leave her alone. I was trying to defend her. But being part of that group, I realized that I go in a wrong direction. And the more I spend with them, the more I become like them. And I need change. And I felt that I need forgiveness. People pray for forgiveness, but they don't have peace. They don't know if they are forgiven. They don't understand. They say, I don't feel forgiven. You don't feel forgiveness. Forgiveness is not electricity to feel it. You don't smell, you don't see, you don't touch forgiveness. Forgiveness is by faith. The Bible simply promised, and God doesn't lie. Not because of you, but because of His character. God says, if you confess, that's your part, to confess. God forgives and cleanses. If you do your part, God certainly does His part. You don't see it. You don't deserve it, you don't feel it, you don't understand it. But nevertheless, in the moment you confess with broken heart, honest heart, in that moment, God forgives you. You are forgiven. That means that Jesus takes your sin over Himself like He did it, and He takes His divine, pure, perfect righteousness and puts it on you like you never sinned. And in that moment, you are as righteous as Jesus because He gives you His own righteousness. You are forgiven. In that moment, you don't feel it, but God promised. And you take it by faith. You believe in it. Basically, if you are in debt and I give you a check, you look to the check and that's all the money that you owe. And you say, I'm not sure this is real or is fake. You need to believe it. You need to have faith that I gave you a real check. And you need to go to the bank in faith and deposit the check. And after you deposit, the bank will tell you, yeah, it's a real check. The money came into your account. So the same with God. You need to trust that God doesn't lie. If He gave you the promise that Jesus on the cross paid for your sin, and when you confess, He gives you the check, He forgives you. If you believe in that moment, you are forgiven. And so, I felt very guilty. And I wanted forgiveness, and I wanted change and victory. So that night, I went to prayer. From that night, my life turned and took a different direction. I went to prayer. I said, Lord, I'm so sorry. I started to go from here and then here and then here, and I was not going in a good direction. But if you forgive me, and if you help me to change, I want forgiveness, and I want a new direction. I want to know you. I want to follow you. I want to serve you. I want a new life. Would you help me? How do I know that you do that? I didn't have enough faith to trust the Bible promise in 1 John. If we confess, God forgives. So simple, clear. I was too small, a baby in spiritual things. We start from babies and we grow more and more and more to the stature of fullness of Christ. And we are called to grow. I was a baby. I'm not there. I didn't get there. But I am growing daily. But in that moment, I was in the beginning. Like Mary, like the thief on the cross, like everybody who started a relationship with God. I was at my start. And so I said, would you please forgive me? And usually, if we know God, we don't need signs. When you ask for a sign, like Gideon in the beginning of his walk with God, he wanted a sign. When you want a sign, it's because you don't know God enough to trust him. When you know him and you trust him, you don't need signs. In fact, you should not depend on signs. You should depend on knowledge and relationship. You should know him and his word and trust that God doesn't lie. God keeps his word. But I was in the beginning. My faith was not strong. So I said, Lord, please show me that you forgave me and you will help me. And then I took the Bible because my father would tell me, prayer and study go together. Through prayer, you talk to God. Through his word, he talks to you back. And so I took the Bible. I said, would you forgive me? Would you let me know that you forgave me? And that you will help me to change, and you will be with me. So I opened the Bible, and it was Isaiah 54. And the Bible verses said, for a moment I was angry with you, but I forgive you. And I receive you back with a great love. And even if the mountains would move, my love will never move from you. I will be with you always. You are never alone, and so on and so forth. In that moment, I knew that God actually is there. And he hears me, and he loves me, and he forgives me, and he helps me. From that moment, I decided every day, instead of focusing on my friends or my life, to start the day with God, with prayer and study, and then ask for his presence, keep calling his presence, to stay connected, to pray continually. Not that I would be on my knees, but that I would be connected throughout the day. I would be in relationship with God to make sure that I know him, to make sure that I follow his plan. And from that moment, I didn't change instantly. Oh, I am a saint. No. But from that moment, the direction changed. Instead of going down, by connecting with God, things started to go up. It was a slow process. Children don't grow fast, but it was a continual process.